Previously on Dragon Ball Shinken, after Cumber achieves his Shinken form, Goku and Vegeta recognize that they are no longer enough to defeat the Godslayer, and so they decide to resort to fusion. As soon as he appears, Gogeta completely humiliates the Godslayer, who in an act of desperation, creates an energy attack that simply surpasses the size of the entire universe. Will Gogeta be able to stop this attack containing all of Cumber Shinken's energy with his power multiplied 80,000 times by Kaoken? Find out now. Episode 28, The Power That Transcends Universes. On Tien's home planet, the sky is completely taken over by Cumber's energy, obviously catching the attention of all the inhabitants and leaving them completely desperate, believing it to be a sign of the end of times. But among everyone, the most desperate is certainly Tien, who has a slightly better idea of what is happening, and although he cannot measure the dimension of that abysmal power, he can understand that the proportions it will take are unimaginable. On Earth, Earthlings also watch the sky being taken over by this strangely colored energy, and they go into total despair. At Kami's lookout, young Master Roshi, God Yamcha, and Krillin watch this event with their hearts completely filled with terror. In Hell, the despair is also very great, with King Kai and King Yama simply freaking out. In despair, King Kai says that this has completely crossed all limits. The result of this for Cumber is shocking. The muscles in his body have abruptly deflated, now giving him a dry and cadaverous appearance. Gogeta is very surprised and impressed by this. Damn, this guy just channeled all the energy concentrated in his body into this thing. After understanding this, Gogeta says to Cumber, "Are you crazy, Cumber? If this thing explodes, I'm sure all universes will be completely destroyed. Not even you'll survive this." But Cumber, completely overcome by fury and madness, says it doesn't matter. All he cares about is completely destroying Gogeta. At Zeno's palace, Daishinkan is apparently talking with the two mysterious people who have just arrived. "I completely understand the situation," the Grand Minister says, clearly in a cordial tone towards the visitors. However, he also issues a warning, "But I have my doubts whether they will peacefully obey you." But he stops talking when he feels something that makes even the Father of Angels feel a chill take over his body. Zeno and his guards, who are watching everything through the Daishinkan hologram, are completely perplexed by what they are seeing. "This is bad!" Daishinkan exclaims. "If all this power spreads, all universes will disappear, and even this palace will be destroyed." Gogeta looks at Cumber with a serious look, recognizing that his enemy has completely crossed all limits. Cumber says that not even he will be able to survive this, and then launches the attack capable of destroying the entire multiverse. Gogeta, in a curious move, simply begins to increase the size of his body. He begins to expand until becoming gigantic, then continues expanding, gaining titanic proportions. However, he goes even further by growing his body to completely stratospheric proportions, surpassing the size of the universe and even surpassing Cumber's globe of power. Gogeta's body takes on an unimaginable dimension, and when Cumber's globe of power of universal proportion reaches him, Gogeta simply makes juggles with it. Gogeta treats that massive sphere of power, capable of destroying the multiverse, like a soccer ball. King Kai simply sees his mouth hit the ground with such shock. Equally shocked are Zeno, his guards, and even Daishinkan. They can't believe what they're seeing. And as for Cumber, he just doesn't know what to feel. Cumber sees that completely paralyzed, taken by a deep state of shock that perhaps even his heart has stopped. "That's kind of fun," Gogeta says, while using his feet to play with the attack. But it's best not to joke about it too much. Gogeta takes the energy globe in his hand and then, using a Hakai with power on a cosmic scale, he makes all of Cumber's energy disappear from existence. There is no explosion, reverberations, vibrational waves, nothing like that. Without any fanfare, that multiversal scale power of destruction disappears as if it were nothing. On planet Earth, on Tien's home planet, and on all the other planets in Universe 7, the sky returns to normal. In Hell, King Kai and King Yama, despite the shock, show great relief. and in Zeno's palace, the supreme god of the multiverse watches everything wide-eyed, seeing that this was absolutely incredible. Even Daishinkan sighs, making clear his great relief. Well, well, what an interesting fellow, says one of the visitors, drawing everyone's attention. For a moment, Cumber is silent, with his body now completely rickety and a cadaverous expression. So, is there anything else you want to try? Gogeta asks him after returning to his original size. No, Cumber responds. His voice, previously high and filled with fury and arrogance, is now low, reflecting a heart as emptied as his muscles. He returns to his base form and then admits, "Not even if I continued evolving for hundreds of years, would I be able to reach your level." Gogeta smiles as he also returns to his base form, and then he responds by saying that it was good that Cumber recognized that at once. Gogeta goes to Cumber and says he's going to take him to Zeno, and warns him not to try anything. Gogeta touches Cumber, and using telepathy, mentally warns Daishinkan that he intends to take Cumber to them, but says that Daishinkan can rest assured, as Cumber will no longer pose any danger. Daishinkan receives Gogeta's mental message with a bit of surprise, saying that he didn't expect him to be able to send telepathic messages over such a great distance. Gogeta says this is one of his many improved skills. Daishinkan then agrees, and says that he can bring Cumber to them. Using teleportation with the same efficiency as Kai, Gogeta goes to Zeno's palace, being received with great joy by the Supreme God, who is so pleased with his presence that he jumps happily on his throne. Zeno says that Goku and Vegeta are absolutely incredible, and Gogeta is even more incredible. But Gogeta ends up not paying much attention to what Zeno is saying, as he notices two mysterious people in the place. The mysterious men look at Gogeta silently, and he does the same. The very weakened Cumber falls to his knees. Looking at him, Daishinkan comments that even his immortal body has been pushed to its absolute limits, and it is a little ironic to see someone who was so proud of his power in this depressing state. Zeno also stares at Cumber for a while, barely believing that this cadaverous-looking person was the same person who just a few minutes ago made his heart fill with terror. Daishinkan says that he has already managed to think of a destiny for Cumber, a special sealing technique used by himself, which will put Cumber in a trance state in a place from which he will never be able to leave. But one of the men present at that place says that this is not what will happen. He says that they are actually interested in Cumber and will take him and Gogeta. This statement leaves everyone present surprised, and Daishinkan asks why they want Cumber. But Gogeta asks what they want with him. Daishinkan explains to Gogeta that these people can help him with this problem of being lost between dimensions. And when he said he would help Goku and Vegeta deal with this problem, he was specifically referring to calling these people, but to his surprise, they appeared there even before he called. The other mysterious man says that men called Goku and Vegeta, as well as Gogeta and Cumber, have caused many problems in the order of dimensions, and this is causing very bad consequences for the natural order of things. That's what brought them there. Gogeta says he had no idea that Goku and Vegeta's situation was causing such big problems. He says that this is another reason for them to return to their reality soon, and says that he is very happy that someone arrived to help. But the mysterious man says that Gogeta didn't quite understand what he meant. He remembers that he just said that their actions caused a lot of problems, and because of that, they are going to be taken into custody. In custody? Gogeta repeats the words, and after pondering it, he gives his answer. I didn't really like the sound of that, so it won't happen. But they tell Gogeta that the option to refuse to go is not being given. When he hears this, he smiles and says that he doesn't think there's anyone there who can make him do anything he doesn't want to do. One of these men steps forward, warning Gogeta with a serious expression that if he resists, he will have to be taken by force. But Gogeta also steps forward, and as he begins to slightly increase his power, says that he can try to do that if he wants. Only with this change in Gogeta's mood does the palace begin to shake intensely, even making Zeno bounce on his throne. The bodyguards are scared, sweating at their temples, and Daishinkan just shuts up and observes. But not even he is calm about that. Gogeta raises one of his hands. However, it is already being held by the mysterious man, who arrived at him in the blink of an eye. This impresses even Gogeta, who lets his surprise show through his eyes, which are discreetly widened. With that man's touch, Gogeta feels his entire body paralyze. "It's as if the weight of the universe were on my shoulders," he comments on his own thoughts. "This guy's definitely not just anyone." But Gogeta is not intimidated. He suddenly surrounds his body with the energy of destruction, and when this energy touches the mysterious man's body, it simply shatters him, turning him into dust. But in a completely unbelievable event, the dust begins to gather, and the man's body reconstitutes itself. "What happened?" Gogeta exclaims, this time certainly not being able to hide a surprise. "The destructive power I put into this aura is greater than what I used in that energy globe that could destroy the entire multiverse." But Gogeta again doesn't let himself be intimidated, and advances with a punch that is as fast as a teleportation. But when his punch hits, it simply passes through the enemy, who goes behind him and, with the touch of his finger on Gogeta's spine, simply makes him paralyzed again. "It cannot be!" Gogeta exclaims, and then faints. With the exception of the other mysterious man, everyone present is completely amazed. Gogeta is passed out floating in the air when he suddenly wakes up with a start. He looks around, and all he sees is a huge, completely white space. "Did I get sent to another dimension?" he wonders. Gogeta closes his eyes, searching for some familiar energy. However, he finds nothing but his own energy. He finds this very strange, as his ability to sense ki is extremely refined, and he should be able to sense someone's energy, even universes or dimensions away. But for some reason, in that place, he can't. Gogeta remembers those two strange men and becomes irritated thinking about how easily he was subdued by one of them. "When I meet that guy again, it will be different," he swears to himself, intending to heal his wounded ego. Suddenly, a kind of light door is created in the middle of that blank space, which alarms Gogeta. "Must be one of those damn things!" Gogeta prepares for the fight, already creating a sphere of power in one of his hands. A foot is placed out of the light, and then Gogeta shoots. But then he is surprised to see that whoever just arrived was not one of those guys, but a woman. And he is even more surprised when the woman stops the sphere of energy launched by him with one finger. "Not bad," she says, while looking at the energy that Gogeta just released. But it's far from enough. The woman suddenly makes the energy sphere disappear from her finger, and suddenly, an explosion happens inside Gogeta's body. Smoke begins to come out of the Saiyan's mouth, nostrils, and ears, who is a little stunned and surprised by what just happened. "What the hell was that? She made my own energy explode inside my body?" he wonders, completely surprised. But after the surprise comes anger, and Gogeta, now recovered, tells this woman that she will pay for this. He moves forward to attack, but then the woman points one of her hands towards him and makes a squeeze sign. Suddenly, a handcuff appears on Gogeta's hands. Looking at this simple and fragile-looking handcuff, Gogeta scoffs. "Are you kidding? Do you really think you're going to hold me with that little toy?" Gogeta was absolutely sure he would break that handcuff in less than a second. However, that's not what happens. "What is that?" he asks himself in disbelief. Gogeta starts to put more strength into his arms, but it's useless. Then he starts screaming and emanating a large amount of power, but it is also useless. Gogeta suddenly weakens and falls to one of his knees, asking what kind of sorcery this woman is using. The woman maintains a calm and neutral demeanor as she explains, "You are in a higher dimension, a place where the rules of your reality simply do not apply. This object may seem simple, and in fact, for me it is. But here, this simple object is capable of containing a force that completely defies the laws of your reality. In other words, here, your power means nothing." When this woman says these things, Gogeta gets very angry. His irritation is a manifestation of his frustration, because the helplessness he is feeling in front of that woman is indescribable. Gogeta recognizes that he is dealing with someone far beyond his reach. Someone on a completely higher level. Looking closely at him, the woman realizes that Gogeta no longer has the intention of reacting, and so she undoes the handcuff, holding him while making it clear that there is no reason for aggression, as she is not there to fight. "Who are you?" he asks as he stands up. The woman has a serious appearance. However, it is clear that there is no aggressive intention in her, which calms Gogeta and even makes him regret a little about what he just did. The woman answers the question. "My name is Gaia. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Gogeta." The woman's education surprises Gogeta a little, who comments about her being more educated than those two he met before. After introducing herself, Gaia asks Gogeta to accompany her, as the time has come for him to start having his doubts resolved. Gaia goes to that light door again and disappears, and Gogeta follows her, also disappearing from that white room. As soon as he crosses the light door, Gogeta finds himself already on top of some kind of transparent board, and once Gogeta gets above it, the board starts to fly. Looking around, Gogeta sees that they are in a place that somewhat resembles the vacuum of space, as it is an extremely vast area. But instead of being a dark space, it is full of colors, including colors that Gogeta has never seen before. Scattered throughout this multicolored space are several gigantic energy cores. By focusing on these energy cores using his extremely accurate sense of ki, Gogeta realizes that within each of these cores, there are countless energy sources of the most diverse possibility. He even notices that in some of them, there are energies that are familiar, while in others he is unaware of everything he feels. He asks Gaia what these things are. Gaia responds by saying that each of these things he is seeing are dimensions. Gogeta retorts by saying that he knows very well what a dimension is, since Goku and Vegeta have already been through several, and he himself too. And these things he's seeing now don't look like the dimensions he knows, since the dimensions, despite being separate areas of the multiverse, still share the general energy of the multiverse, and that doesn't seem to be the case with those things. Hearing this, Gaia lets out a smile, something that Gogeta recognizes as amusement or mockery, and asks what's so funny. Gaia responds by saying that Gogeta's concept of dimension is a little different from her concept of dimension. She explains that the dimensions he refers to are nothing more than parts of the multiverse in which he resides, but the dimensions he is seeing now are completely different. They are worlds apart. Gaia raises her hands, and suddenly, Gogeta sees giant mirrors appear in front of these dimensions, and these mirrors, as if they were a hologram, seem to reflect what is inside them. As the board continues its journey, and what happens in some dimensions is displayed by these mirrors, Gaia explains. The dimensions you can normally teleport to are spaces that already exist in the multiverse in which you reside. In other words, with your teleportation, you remain within a multiverse. However, being able to access parallel spaces that exist within it, breaking some walls of your reality, I must admit that this in itself is already impressive, as very few people are able to break the walls of reality to the point of reaching alternative places. But this is still very little compared to what happens here. At that moment, you are completely outside the boundaries of the multiverse, and what you're doing is traveling between multiple multiverses on a completely higher plane. Passing through one of the holograms, Gogeta comes across a very peculiar image where a bald Gohan using his beast form is facing Golden Frieza and Golden Cooler, who are Siamese twins. Using this as an example, Gaia explains that this fight does not take place in any parallel location in the multiverse where Gogeta came from, but rather in a multiverse where things happen in a very different way. Gogeta tells Gaia that the places Goku and Vegeta have visited so far simply seem like alternative versions of what they experienced. To him, this seems much more like alternative timelines, like the one future Trunks came from. But Gaia responds by explaining that this goes far beyond any alternative timeline, as timelines are also parallel realities that take place within a single multiverse. She explains that all these realities that Gogeta is seeing now have their own timelines, which are also infinite. The experience that he, Goku, and Vegeta just had in Cumber's reality, for example, was not simply in an alternative timeline of their multiverse, but in another multiverse that in itself already has its infinity. Gaia also says that he probably already realized that the power scale of the multiple realities is very variable. Gogeta says yes, and remembers that in the reality he just came from, Krillin, for example, was incomparably more powerful than the Krillin he knows. And also, Master Roshi had a level of Ultra Instinct refining that almost compared to an angel in his reality. Gaia says that this variation in power is extremely common, and says that this friend of his, called Krillin, can be stronger than the most powerful gods in some realities, while in others he can be weaker than a bee. Gogeta says that if the differences between realities are as insane as she's saying, he can't let his guard down even against the weakest people he knows. Maybe somewhere there is a Pilaf who can kill him. Gaia also explains that although he has so far only seen alternative worlds similar to his, there are infinite other worlds that are not. To give an example, Gaia points to one of the holograms that displays what happens in some dimension, and then Gogeta understands what she means when he sees a completely unknown reality, where a boy who has an energy sphere in his hand hits a hairy man. But he makes fun of what he sees, saying the following: "His energy looks like a sphere of ki with a different color. Big deal." Then he sees in another hologram a guy in a cape fighting a very ugly man. What's new about a guy wearing a ridiculous costume with a cape? Gohan has been doing this for a long time, he comments, comparing that caped man to the Great Saiyan Man. Then he sees a boy stretching his arm to punch a weird fish man in the face. Big deal, any Namekian can do that, and there are animal-like men on Earth too. Then he sees a man wearing mechanical armor firing a laser. Mule used something similar when he fought Vegeta. The next one was two men in a sword battle. Even Yamcha knew how to use swords. Hearing Gogeta make an inappropriate comment for each reality that was shown, Gaia raises her hands again, and the holograms disappear. She explains to him that the point is not to find similarities, but to understand that in these realities that he has just seen, the way things work is very different than in his world, and that in these realities neither he nor those he knows exist. This is something that simply goes beyond common dimensions or alternative timelines, and that's not all. Each of these dimensions she just showed has infinite variations, where the scales of power are also extremely variable. While in one dimension a person may be considered weak in power, in another dimension, that same person may have completely transcendental power. Gogeta asks where they are now, and what exactly are Gaia and those other guys who kidnapped him doing. Gaia explains that this place where they are now, called Top of Infinity, is the place where he can have control over all dimensions. A kind of neutral zone, and in that place lives the Dimensional Patrol, the order of which she and those two men are part. Gogeta tells her that he needs more information than that, but Gaia, saying that they are approaching a gigantic tower, says that his questions will have to wait a little longer. The flying board goes to the top of this tower, where there is an empty flat space, and in that space there is a man. When the board lands there, Gaia introduces Gogeta to that person. Gogeta, this is the captain of the Dimensional Patrol, Crones. After being introduced, Crones politely greets Gogeta. He has the same serious expression as Gaia and those two he had met before, but he seems to try hard to be more cordial. However, Gogeta does not share the same cordiality as Crones, and says that if he is the leader of this patrol, then he can send him home at once. However, to Gogeta's irritation, Crones says that won't happen, at least not now. Gogeta says he doesn't understand what they want from him, and tells them to talk at once. Crones says that Goku and Vegeta's actions have caused great instability between many dimensions, and this is causing a lot of problems for them. At first, the objective of the Dimensional Patrol was to arrest them and make a trial that would probably end in their death. But investigating the situation, they understood that nothing had happened was on purpose, so they decided that they can pay for their crimes in some other way. Gogeta sighs while saying that he already understands where this is going. Crones confirms his suspicion, saying that the Dimensional Patrol wants Goku and Vegeta to work for them, paying for their crimes with service. Gogeta says that he doesn't intend to be enslaved by anyone, and that if they intend to force him to do something, they are very mistaken. Crones patiently reminds Gogeta what happened when he tried to confront a patrolman for the first time, and also what just happened to Gaia. Trying to fight them is useless. Gogeta says that in none of these situations was he using his maximum power. If he uses his full power, things will be very different. But Crones says that they actually already saw the extent of his powers in the fight against Cumber, and even though he didn't use all of his powers against Cumber, it was possible to get a sense of the extent of his abilities. Crones states that he can guarantee that Gogeta will not be a challenge to any of the patrollers, especially him. He says that the patrollers are on a completely superior level, to the point that Gogeta's power has no meaning for them. Gaia adds that all Dimensional Rangers are unique beings, and those who belong to this group are the most powerful of all realities. She admits that Gogeta is very powerful, especially using that skill called Shinken. But not even the Shinken power will make any difference in a fight against them. Even after they said all this, Gogeta still doesn't seem convinced. And seeing this, Crones tells him that maybe Gogeta doesn't want to help the Dimensional Patrol because he's thinking that all this is very far from his reality, but actually is not. And sooner or later, everything he knows will also be affected. Gogeta asks what he means by that. Crones explains it further. saying that after Goku and Vegeta transcended the barriers of realities for the first time, they created a chain effect of weakening the barriers. The result of this is that a very strong instability is being created, and this could end up in the destruction of several realities, including his. At an absolutely incredible speed, Krones approaches Gogeta, touching his forehead before he can react, and suddenly, a vision comes to Gogeta's mind, where he sees Earth, and the planet is going through a natural calamity of absurd proportions, while an army of strange creatures is attacking the planet. After showing this, Krones walks away, returning to the same place he was at such a high speed that it doesn't even look like he left there. He explains that what Gogeta just saw is a glimpse of an alternative future of the Earth of his reality, where the dimensional imbalance will cause many natural problems on the planet, and also a people from a much more powerful dimension will invade the Earth and annihilate everyone who lives there. Somehow, Gogeta realizes that the vision he just saw doesn't seem to be an illusion, and knowing that it is real, he becomes worried. Krones continues talking, explaining that even if Gogeta returns to his reality now and tries to live normally, sooner or later this problem will catch up with him and the people he loves, and no matter how strong he is, he won't be able to avoid the complete chaos and total destruction of his reality. Gaia adds that helping the Dimensional Patrol will not only help Gogeta pay for his crimes, but also save his own reality. After pondering all of this for a few seconds, Gogeta finally gives his answer, and preceded by a long sigh, the answer is yes. But Gogeta says that he would like to know a little more about the Dimensional Patrol, like who exactly they are, what they do, who their leader is, and so on. Krones says he doesn't need to know these things now, and if he wants more information, he needs to earn it. He says that all Gogeta needs to know for now is that the Dimensional Patrol works for the balance of dimensions, and as long as Gogeta is working with them, his role will be that too. After saying these things, Krones asks Gaia to inform Gogeta of his mission. She raises her hands, and then suddenly one of those various realities approaches them. Wow, did she just move an entire reality? This must be like moving all 12 universes, Gogeta comments, very impressed. Gaia begins to explain his mission. This reality, like the others you have been to so far, has similarities to the reality you come from, but it is obviously very different as well. We have found that there is an imbalance in the dimensional barriers of this reality, but we have not yet been able to investigate because there are literally millions of other more serious problems that we need to resolve first. So your mission is to go to that reality, discover the cause of the problem, and deal with it. Gogeta asks how he will do that, and Gaia just replies that he will find a way. Krones tells Gogeta that he must already be aware of the variation in powers of realities, and warns that in this reality he is going to now, there are extremely powerful beings, and he should not let his guard down at any time. Gogeta nods, signaling that he understands the situation, but he gets a little worried and asks if Krones thinks Goku and Vegeta will be able to handle everything once the fusion is over. Gaia looks at him with a curious look when she hears this. Oh, you didn't know? The fusion will not end, she says. When Gogeta hears this, his mouth drops to the floor. Krones explains that as they have Shinken, a technique that elevates all of their abilities to an extreme level, the same happened with the fusion technique. In other words, the time limitation was removed. Gaia says she is surprised he didn't know about it. Gogeta says that Goku and Vegeta still didn't have such a high level of knowledge about Shinken, and they certainly didn't know that. Krones, while pointing his hand at Gogeta, tells him not to worry, as there are ways to undo the fusion, and he will figure it out later. Before Gogeta could ask anything else, he just disappeared from there. Gogeta appears in the middle of a very strange planet, completely desert. Damn, I feel like a pawn going from one side to the other, he complains. Gogeta starts to wonder what he has to do now, since Krones and Gaia didn't give any instructions about where the problem that affects the dimensions could be. Then, Gogeta closes his eyes and begins to concentrate, and in an instant he can locate himself, but he is surprised when this happens. The reason for Gogeta's surprise is that he realizes that in the dimension he is in, there is no division of universes. He realizes that in this dimension there is a single universe, but it is much larger than the 12 universes he knew combined. It looks like I'm really going to find a lot of different things here, he concludes. Suddenly, something else catches Gogeta's attention, surprising him a lot. These two key, what does that mean? Somewhere in the vacuum of space, an extremely intense battle is taking place. Two beams of light fight, moving at extraordinary speed and delivering attacks so incredibly powerful that they shake the entire structure of that gigantic universe. One of these light beams is white in color, while the other is divided between white and purple. The white light, after a collision with the other light, is launched very far, traveling through space at a stratospheric speed that surpasses the speed of light countless times. It is at one of the corners of the southern galaxy that the white light finally loses strength, and stops when it invades a gigantic planet and falls to its ground, leaving the planet completely cracked thanks to the violence of the impact. Gogeta immediately goes to this planet with a teleportation, stopping near the white light that fell on the planet, and looking at who that being is, he confirms his suspicions. Miss Vados, what's going on? He asks. Vados, the guardian angel who in his reality serves Universe 6, is down, completely injured and with blood dripping from her face. Her expression is one of pain and suffering. She asks who he is. Gogeta introduces himself, saying his name and making it clear that he is not an enemy. The ray of white and purple light approaches at extraordinary speed, landing on the planet while opening a crater in the ground. The one who has just arrived emanates an aura of intense power. The aura is double, where light and dark energy mix in an incredible balance. Gogeta knows those two energies very well. It is the power of Hakai and Ultra Instinct. And that's not all. He recognizes the wielder of that power too. Vegeta, right? He asks the other Saiyan, who looks at him with a curious look. Gogeta finally manages to understand part of the mystery behind the multiple realities he was visiting, and is now sent on an ultra-dangerous mission by the mysterious Dimensional Patrol. But what is happening in this reality? Why is Vegeta fighting Vados? And who is good and evil in this story? Find out in the next episodes of Dragon Ball Shinken!